From a producer's son singing the theme song to Ron Howard meeting his future wife on set, the Smith family hid fascinating secrets behind its wholesome facade. This forgotten 1971 series, starring Hollywood legend Henry Fonda, concealed bizarre casting stories, identity crises, and surprising connections that would shock even die-hard fans today. Fact 1. The producer's son sang the theme, not the original artist. When you hear the opening credits of The Smith Family, you're actually listening to a family affair in more ways than one. The show's theme song, Primrose Lane, was originally a hit single back in 1959, performed by country singer Jerry Wallace. Wallace's version climbed the charts and became a nostalgic favorite that perfectly captured small-town American life. But when producer Don Federson needed a theme for his new series, he didn't hire the original artist or even a professional singer from outside the company. Instead, he gave the job to his own son, Mike Miner, who was already a familiar face on television as Steve Elliott on Petticoat Junction. Miner recorded a brand new version specifically for the Smith family, making this one of the most blatant examples of nepotism in television theme song history. While some producers might have faced criticism for such an obvious favor to family, Federson had complete control over his production company and could make whatever decisions he wanted. Mike Miner's version of Primrose Lane became the sound that introduced viewers to the Smith family every week, and most audience members had no idea they were listening to the producer's son rather than a chart-topping recording artist. It was a sweet deal for Miner, who got to add another credit to his resume without even auditioning against other singers. Fact 2. Ron Howard admits the show was terrible. Ron Howard has never been shy about his honest assessment of The Smith Family, and his candid admissions about the show's quality are refreshingly brutal. In various interviews over the years, Howard has openly stated that he knew the series was bad while they were filming it, which is a rare confession from an actor about their own work. Despite genuinely enjoying his time working alongside the legendary Henry Fonda, whom he respected deeply as both an actor and a person, Howard could tell that the scripts weren't good and the show lacked the special spark that made great television memorable. Having already experienced what a hit show felt like during his years on The Andy Griffith Show, where he played Opie Taylor in a series that became a cultural phenomenon, Howard had developed an instinct for quality television. He could sense that the Smith family simply didn't have that magic, and his gut feeling proved correct when the show struggled in the ratings and was canceled after just 2 seasons. Years later, when Happy Days became another massive success, Howard's suspicions about the Smith family were further confirmed. He understood the difference between a show that connected with audiences and one that fell flat, and he's never pretended otherwise about this particular entry in his extensive television resume. Fact 3. Ron Howard met his future wife on set. While the Smith family failed to capture America's heart, it succeeded in bringing together one of Hollywood's most enduring couples. In December of 1970, Ron Howard's girlfriend Cheryl Alley came to visit him on the set of the series, marking the first time she had seen him at work on this particular show. At the time, they were young and dating, with no idea that this visit to a forgotten television series would become a memorable milestone in their love story. The couple continued their relationship beyond the show's cancellation in 1972, and 5 years after that set visit, they got married. Their marriage has now lasted for decades, making them one of the rare Hollywood couples who found lasting love and stayed together through all the ups and downs of show business. It's ironic that such a forgettable and short-lived series became the backdrop for a relationship that would far outlast the show itself. While the Smith family disappeared from television screens and public memory, Ron and Cheryl Howard built a life together, raised a family, and proved that sometimes the best things that come from failed projects have nothing to do with ratings or reviews. That December visit to the set became part of their personal history, a small moment from a big flop that connected to something much more meaningful and permanent. Fact 4. The show couldn't decide what it was. The Smith family suffered from a massive identity crisis that confused both audiences and the cast themselves. During the first season, the series positioned itself as a warm family drama with light comedic elements, focusing on the everyday lives of the Smith family with an emphasis on relationships and domestic situations. The gentle, nostalgic theme song, Primrose Lane, set the tone for a show that seemed to be about wholesome family values and simple small-town life. But when the second season arrived, the producers apparently panicked about the ratings and decided to completely reinvent the show's identity. They scrapped the softer approach and pivoted hard toward police action and crime drama, transforming Henry Fonda's character, Chad Smith, from a friendly neighborhood detective into someone who faced much more serious and dangerous situations. The opening sequence was entirely redone to reflect this new direction, replacing the mellow family vibe with something more intense and action-oriented. This drastic shift left viewers completely bewildered about what kind of show they were supposed to be watching. Were they tuning in for heartwarming family moments or edge-of-your-seat police drama? The show never figured out how to balance these two conflicting identities, and the awkward combination of light family comedy mixed with serious crime elements created a tonal mess that satisfied nobody. Fact 5. Henry Fonda praised an ex-con's professionalism publicly. A remarkable moment of Hollywood professionalism unfolded during the filming of The Smith Family, when guest star Paul Peterson, best known as Jeff Stone from The Donna Reed Show, appeared in an episode playing an ex-convict character. During one particular scene, Peterson was giving an intense, emotionally charged performance that fully committed to the darkness and struggle of his character. However, the producer stepped in mid-scene and asked Peterson to dial back his intensity, apparently feeling that the performance was too heavy or didn't match the tone they wanted for the episode. This kind of direction can be crushing for an actor who has prepared thoroughly and invested themselves emotionally in a role, but Peterson immediately made the adjustment without complaint or visible frustration. After the scene wrapped, Henry Fonda, one of the most respected actors in Hollywood history, walked over to Peterson and shook his hand. Fonda told him directly that what he had just witnessed was one of the most professional things he had ever seen in his decades of acting experience. Coming from a legend like Fonda, this compliment carried enormous weight and showed the deep respect one actor had for another's ability to adapt and perform under difficult circumstances. For Peterson, having Fonda acknowledge his professionalism in that moment must have been an incredible validation, even if the show itself was struggling and his career was winding down. Fact 6. The infamous rap line became a punchline one. Particular line of dialogue from the Smith family has lived on in infamy long after the show itself was forgotten, becoming an unintentional comedy classic that perfectly captured the show's awkward attempts to sound relevant to young viewers. In one episode, Ron Howard's character, Bob Smith, enthusiastically invites a guest star up to his room with the line, "You want to go up to my room and rap?" In the early 1970s, the word rap was contemporary slang that simply meant to talk or have a conversation, and young people used it regularly without any strange connotations. However, the way the line was written and delivered on the show made it sound incredibly forced, unnatural, and hilariously awkward. The problem was that adult television writers were trying to write dialogue that sounded like authentic teenage speech, but they ended up creating something that felt painfully stilted and artificial. The line became so notorious among people who watched the show that it turned into a running joke about how out of touch the Smith family was when it tried to be hip and connect with younger audiences. Decades later, viewers who remember the show still bring up this particular moment as a perfect example of early 70s television completely failing to understand how actual teenagers talked. The fact that Ron Howard, who was a teenager himself at the time, had to deliver these cringe-worthy lines with conviction makes the whole situation even more amusing in retrospect. Fact 7. Paul Peterson's final acting role was on this show. The Smith family holds an unexpected place in television history as the final acting appearance of Paul Peterson, who had been a beloved star throughout the 1960s. Peterson became famous playing Jeff Stone on The Donna Reed Show, a role that made him a household name and a fixture of wholesome family television for 8 seasons. After that series ended, Peterson continued working in Hollywood, but his appearance on The Smith Family in 1971 marked a turning point he likely didn't anticipate at the time. Playing an ex-convict trying to rebuild his life, Peterson delivered what would become his swan song as an actor. After that episode aired, Paul Peterson never acted in another television show or movie again. He completely walked away from the acting career that had defined his youth and early adulthood. While many child stars struggle to transition into adult roles and gradually fade from the screen, Peterson's exit was more definitive. He left acting behind and moved into other areas, including advocacy work for former child actors and writing about his experiences in the entertainment industry. The fact that such a forgettable, short-lived series became the final chapter of his acting career adds an element of poignancy to the story. Peterson's last performance wasn't in a prestigious drama or a hit series, but rather in an episode of a struggling show that would be canceled shortly after and forgotten by most viewers. Fact 8. Erin Moran appeared before Happy Days. Reunion. Years before Erin Moran and Ron Howard would become one of television's most beloved sibling pairs as Joni and Richie Cunningham on Happy Days, they actually worked together on The Smith Family in a much smaller capacity. Moran appeared as a guest star on the show, playing a girl who gets invited to a party, a minor role that didn't hint at the massive success both actors would find together just a few years later. At the time of her appearance, Moran was still a young actress building her career through various guest spots on different television series, and Ron Howard was between his iconic role as Opie Taylor and his breakthrough as Richie Cunningham. Neither of them could have predicted that they would reunite on a show that would become a cultural phenomenon and run for 11 seasons, making them both household names all over again. The Smith family gave them their first chance to work together, even though they didn't share significant screen time or play characters with any meaningful connection. When Happy Days premiered in 1974 and became a massive hit, this earlier collaboration on a forgotten flop became an interesting piece of trivia. It's one of those strange coincidences where two actors who would later have incredible chemistry and create television history together first met on a show that nobody remembers and that disappeared without making any cultural impact whatsoever. Fact 9. The show featured Future. Happy Days connections. The web of connections between the Smith family and Happy Days goes even deeper than just Ron Howard and Erin Moran working together. Several other actors who would later appear on Happy Days also guest starred on this forgotten series, creating an eerie network of relationships that would only become apparent years later. Tim Matheson, who would go on to play various roles in Hollywood and appear on Happy Days, was among the guest stars who showed up during the Smith family's brief run. While these appearances seemed random and insignificant at the time, they became fascinating coincidences once Happy Days exploded into one of the most successful sitcoms of the 1970s and early 1980s. It's as if the Smith family served as an accidental testing ground or unofficial audition space for actors who would later populate the world of 1950s nostalgia that Happy Days created so successfully. The fact that so many people connected to one of television's biggest hits all passed through this little-remembered flop raises interesting questions about how Hollywood connections work and how actors' paths cross in unexpected ways. For fans who dig deep into television history, discovering these links between a forgotten failure and a legendary success provides entertainment value that the actual episodes of The Smith Family could never deliver on their own. Fact 10. Ron Howard got brutally beaten. In one episode. For a show that started out positioning itself as gentle family entertainment, The Smith Family delivered some surprisingly violent content that shocked viewers who thought they were watching something safe and wholesome. In an episode titled Where There's Smoke, Ron Howard's character Bob Smith discovers that a group of students is planning to set fire to their school building, and he tries to do the right thing by calling the police to stop this dangerous crime. However, when the would-be arsonists realize what Bob is attempting to do, they don't just argue with him or try to stop him verbally. Instead, they viciously attack him, delivering a brutal beating that was shockingly graphic for a family-friendly series airing in early prime time. The scene showed Ron Howard's character getting physically assaulted with a level of violence that seemed completely out of place for a show that also featured lighthearted family moments and gentle comedy. This tonal inconsistency perfectly illustrated the identity crisis that plagued the Smith family throughout its run. One minute, the show wanted to be a warm family drama about everyday life, and the next minute, it was showing a teenage character getting beaten up by criminals in a dark, violent confrontation. For viewers, and especially parents who expected something wholesome and appropriate for family viewing, this kind of content was jarring and uncomfortable. The beating scene remains one of the most memorable moments from the series, but not for the right reasons. Fact 11. The Smith family address was 219 Primrose Lane. The Smith family included a clever meta-reference that almost certainly went over the heads of most viewers who watched the show during its original run. The Smith family lived at the specific address of 219 Primrose Lane, which directly connected their fictional home to the show's theme song title. Since Primrose Lane was the song that played during the opening credits each week, having the family actually reside on a street with that exact name created a self-referential loop that tied the show's identity together in a neat package. This kind of detail shows that someone involved in the production, whether a writer or producer, was paying attention to these small touches that could add an extra layer of meaning to the show's world. However, the reference was subtle enough that casual viewers probably never made the connection between the theme song and the family's address. Unlike more obvious references or breaking the fourth wall, this was the type of Easter egg that only dedicated fans or people reading scripts might notice and appreciate. It's the kind of detail that becomes more interesting in retrospect when people are analyzing a show years later, rather than something that enhanced the viewing experience for audiences at the time. The address became part of the show's internal logic and helped establish the world the characters inhabited, even if most people watching had no idea that Primrose Lane was anything more than a random street name chosen to sound pleasant and suburban. Fact 12. The show was one of TV's first dramedies. Decades before the term dramedy became a common classification for television shows that blend comedy and drama, the Smith family was struggling to create exactly that kind of hybrid format, without a roadmap or successful examples to follow. The show attempted to mix lighthearted family comedy with serious police drama, all compressed into 30-minute episodes that didn't have enough time to properly develop either tone. This was an ambitious experiment for 1971 television, when most shows stayed firmly in one genre category and didn't try to blend opposing elements. Family sitcoms were funny and light, crime dramas were serious and intense, and very few producers attempted to combine the two approaches in a single series. The Smith family was ahead of its time in trying to create this balance, but unfortunately, audiences weren't ready for it, and the execution wasn't strong enough to convince viewers that this hybrid approach could work. The show couldn't figure out how much weight to give to each element, so episodes felt uneven and tonally confused. Sometimes the family comedy would dominate, and the police work would feel like an afterthought, while other episodes would focus so heavily on crime that the family dynamics barely registered. It would take many more years and shows like Moonlighting, Ally McBeal, and eventually Desperate Housewives to prove that dramedy could be successful when done right. The Smith family deserves credit for attempting this format so early, even though the show failed to pull it off successfully. Fact 13. CBS co-produced for a rival network. The production arrangement behind The Smith Family was genuinely unusual for 1971 and raised eyebrows in the television industry at the time. CBS Television Studios co-produced the series alongside Don Federson Productions, which sounds normal enough until you realize that the show actually aired on ABC, not CBS. This meant that one network's production division was creating content that would appear on a competing network, which was considered quite strange and unconventional during this era of television. Networks typically kept their production studios focused on creating content for their own channels, viewing their competitors as rivals who shouldn't benefit from their resources or expertise. The fact that CBS was willing to work on a show that would air on ABC suggests there were financial or contractual reasons that made this arrangement make sense for all parties involved. But it still represented an unusual crossing of network boundaries. This kind of collaboration between competing networks was rare in the early 1970s, when the industry was more territorial and protective of their properties. Today, with production companies regularly creating content for various streaming services and networks, this arrangement seems less remarkable. But in the context of 1971 television, having CBS help produce a show for ABC was noteworthy enough that industry insiders paid attention and considered it an unconventional business decision that broke from standard practices. Fact 14. The show died along with Federson's company. The Smith family holds a melancholy place in television history as one of the final gasps of Don Federson Productions before the company effectively ceased creating original series. Federson had been a successful producer for years, with hit shows like My Three Sons running for 12 seasons and becoming a beloved staple of American television. But by 1972, both The Smith Family and My Three Sons were canceled within the same year, marking the end of an era for Federson's production company. After losing both shows, Don Federson Productions never launched another successful original series. The company limped along, producing only television movies for the next decade, but it had lost its ability to create hit series that could capture audiences and run for multiple seasons. By 1982, the company dissolved entirely, ending Don Federson's run as a major player in the television industry. The cancellation of the Smith family was more than just the end of one forgettable series. It represented the beginning of the end for an entire production company that had once been capable of producing long-running hits. This context adds extra sadness to the show's failure because it wasn't just another canceled program that would be replaced by the producer's next project. Instead, the Smith family was one of the last original ideas from a company that was running out of creative steam and losing its touch with what audiences wanted to watch. Fact 15. It nearly became a lost show forever. The Smith family came dangerously close to becoming one of those lost television series that exists only in memory and written records, with no actual episodes surviving for future generations to watch. The show aired from 1971 to 1972, which was before VHS tapes became common in households and before anyone thought about preserving television shows for home video release. Back then, once a show finished its run and didn't get picked up for syndication, the episodes essentially disappeared from public access. Networks and studios didn't have organized archives the way they do today, and many programs from this era were simply lost forever when their original broadcast masters were destroyed, recorded over, or deteriorated in storage. The Smith family never entered syndication because it wasn't successful enough to warrant constant reruns, which meant there was no financial incentive for anyone to preserve the episodes or make them available to viewers. For decades, the show existed in a kind of television limbo, remembered by the few people who had watched it during its original run, but impossible to see for anyone else. Eventually, dedicated DVD collectors and television archivists tracked down all 39 episodes from various sources, rescuing the series from complete obscurity. While The Smith Family may not have been worth preserving for its quality or cultural impact, the fact that it survived at all represents the hard work of people who believe television history deserves to be documented and available, even when the shows themselves are forgettable failures.